The sprawling wedding hall glowed under soft, golden lights. Its walls were transparent, revealing the stars beyond, a breathtaking view of the nearby planets and moons. Guests from across the galaxy had gathered, humans and aliens alike, dressed in their finest attire. The air hummed with polite conversation and laughter, a mixture of different languages and tones. Amid all this celebration, Maya stepped into the hall. Maya moved with quiet confidence. She was tall and graceful, with dark skin that shone softly under the golden lights. Her dress was elegant, flowing in deep blue and silver, simple yet perfect for the grand occasion. She carried herself as though she belonged, but the crowd didn't see it the same way. Almost immediately she noticed the whispers. A pair of women in sparkling dresses glanced at her from across the room, whispering rapidly, their eyes darting away whenever she looked their way. A man with green scales, part of a humanoid alien species, avoided the aisle entirely when he noticed her walking through it. Even those who didn't directly avoid her seemed uncomfortable when she passed. Maya's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. She had expected it. She had walked into many rooms like this, where people judged her before knowing anything about her. She had learned a long time ago that pride and composure could shift attention faster than anger or complaints. As she entered the center of the hall, the chatter seemed too quiet for a moment, though it was subtle. She saw Daniel, the groom, busy near the ceremonial dais, adjusting his tie and speaking softly to his best man. He didn't notice her yet. She didn't approach him. This was not the moment for introductions or explanations. Maya knew her presence would speak louder than her words if the moment came. A waiter passed with a tray of glowing drinks. Maya reached for one but paused, sensing someone staring at her from the balcony above. A young alien girl, small and pale, with large round eyes, watched her with curiosity rather than judgment. Maya returned a small, friendly smile. The girl quickly looked away, embarrassed, but Maya noticed the spark of interest. Perhaps not everyone here was blind to her. Maya moved deeper into the hall, observing the guests. She could see the subtle ways people avoided her. Some shifted in their seats when she walked past. Some stopped mid-conversation, pretending to look at something else. A few, braver, whispered just loud enough for her to hear snippets. Who invited her? She's different. Do you know her story? Should we speak to her? Maya chuckled softly in her mind. They were curious, yes, but not brave enough to engage. It didn't matter. She had her reasons for being here, and no amount of avoidance would change that. A sudden commotion drew her attention. An alien child had knocked over a ceremonial vase near the dais. The vase teetered dangerously, filled with sparkling water that would have soaked the ornamental carpets. Without hesitation, Maya stepped forward. With a swift, precise movement, she caught the vase and steadied it before it fell. The guests nearby gasped. "Thank you," the child said, eyes wide with admiration. Maya smiled kindly. "Be careful next time," she said softly, handing it back. The crowd, for the first time, seemed to notice her abilities. Whispers grew louder, though still laced with hesitation. She's skilled, fast, graceful. One could almost hear the awe behind the words. Despite the growing murmurs, many still avoided approaching her. Maya understood they were reacting not to her actions but to their assumptions, their fear of someone they didn't understand. It was a common mistake, but Maya didn't mind. She had patience, and she knew that moments like these built the story that would eventually change perceptions. That as she moved toward a quieter corner of the hall, she spotted a group of humans discussing the ceremony. They were mid-conversation, their eyes flicking toward her from time to time. One of them, a young man in a crisp suit, muttered something under his breath. "I don't know why she's here. She doesn't belong." Maya paused, letting her presence be known without speaking. She could feel the subtle shift in the air, the slight stiffening of shoulders, the tightening of lips. Some felt awkward, some felt challenged. She allowed herself a tiny smile. They didn't know her story yet, and soon, that would change. She found a seat near the edge of the hall, giving her a full view of the ceremony preparations. The groom, Daniel, was laughing softly with his friends, unaware of the silent drama unfolding in the crowd. Maya's eyes softened. She had known Daniel for years not as a lover, but as someone who trusted her, someone who had seen her strength and kindness when others had not. Her presence here was as much for him as for herself. Time passed slowly, and more guests arrived. Maya noticed that no one directly approached her, though a few tried subtle gestures, a polite nod, a soft smile, but even those were fleeting. She observed quietly, patient, letting the energy of the hall flow around her. Her mind was sharp, analyzing, anticipating. Then a soft vibration from her communicator reminded her of her other duties that day. Maya was not just a guest. She had a role that some would not even guess. She had helped Daniel's family in ways they would never publicly know. Her work had saved lives on the colony, and she had done it without seeking attention or reward. Today, however, the recognition was optional. It depended on one moment, the groom noticing her. The music began to shift, signaling the start of the ceremony. Guests took their seats, the room quieting as anticipation filled the air. Maya adjusted her posture, her hands resting calmly on her lap. She could feel the tension from the crowd, the whispers that had not yet faded completely. They did not understand yet that this was not just a wedding. They were about to witness a moment that would reveal something greater than appearances. A young alien musician started a soft melody, the notes echoing through the hall. Maya's eyes found Daniel, who looked both excited and nervous. She allowed herself a small, private smile. Soon, very soon, her name would be spoken, and the whispers would change tone. For now, she remained unseen, quietly observing, quietly waiting. The unseen guest had already noticed everything, and when the moment came, everyone in that hall would realize that they had misjudged her and that misjudgment would not last long. Maya sat there, calm and patient, the soft lights reflecting off her dress. The stars outside twinkled like tiny diamonds, silent witnesses to her presence, and in that quiet, unassuming moment, a spark of change had begun. The wedding was about to begin, but Maya's story had already started. The music filled the hall, soft and melodic, wrapping the guests in a sense of anticipation. Maya sat quietly near the edge of the ceremony area, her eyes scanning the room. She noticed subtle movements. Some guests were still whispering, some shifting uncomfortably in their seats, others sneaking glances at her. The attention she received was not entirely unwelcome. It was curiosity, mixed with caution and perhaps even envy. A pair of guests, a human man and a tall alien woman with glimmering skin, leaned toward each other, barely whispering. "Do you know who she is?" the man asked, his voice low. "No idea," the alien replied, her large eyes darting toward Maya. "I've heard stories, but she seems too calm for someone with that reputation." Maya heard this and allowed herself a small, almost imperceptible smile. She had learned long ago that reputation often preceded a person, and that people's perceptions were more entertaining than any truth. They would learn soon enough. A soft laugh drew her attention. It was a child, one of the alien children running around near the edges of the hall. The child had been trying to get closer to the ceremony, but the adults kept holding her back. When the child saw Maya sitting quietly, she ran over, curiosity shining in her eyes. "You're different," the child said bluntly, tilting her head as she examined Maya's calm expression. "I suppose I am," Maya replied gently, her voice soft yet clear. "Different doesn't mean bad, though." The child giggled and then scampered off, leaving the adults around her whispering even more. Some tried to catch Maya's attention, as if asking silently for approval or understanding. Maya responded only with a quiet nod, acknowledging them without speaking. Her poise spoke louder than any words could. Across the hall, she noticed a few older guests frowning. They were murmuring about her presence, about how unusual it was to see someone like her at such an important event. Maya could feel their judgment, but she refused to let it disturb her. She had come for a reason, and that reason was not tied to their approval. The ceremony began to move forward, and the officiant, a tall humanoid alien with silver hair, stepped forward. Guests straightened in their seats, and Maya's gaze returned to the groom. Daniel was adjusting his cufflinks, looking slightly nervous. Maya allowed herself another small smile. She knew the bond between them was strong, though others could not see it. Then, a minor mishap occurred. A tray of ceremonial crystals, carried by a hovering drone, tilted unexpectedly, threatening to spill across the aisle. The crowd froze, unsure of what to do. Without hesitation, Maya rose from her seat, moving swiftly and catching the tray before it could fall. The crystals clinked softly in her hands as she set them back upright. A few guests gasped. "How did she?" one whispered. Others glanced at her wide-eyed. Even those who had avoided her now found their curiosity growing stronger. Maya returned to her seat gracefully, giving only a small nod to the onlookers. She didn't need to explain herself. Her actions had already spoken. Still, the room was not fully welcoming. Whispers continued, some tinged with unease. "Why is she here? Who does she think she is? Is she important?" Maya let them talk. She had learned that people often revealed their true thoughts when they spoke without realizing she could hear. Each word they said was a clue, a reflection of their ignorance or curiosity. She made a mental note of them all, storing the reactions as one might collect pieces of a puzzle. A young alien diplomat approached, his pale skin glimmering faintly in the soft light. "Excuse me, miss," he said politely, though with visible hesitation. "Are you related to the family, or are you a guest?" Maya looked at him, her expression calm, and replied, "I am a friend of the groom. That is all you need to know for now." The diplomat nodded, though his curiosity did not fade. He stepped away, whispering to his companions about her. Others nearby began to glance in her direction more openly, intrigued by her composure and quiet confidence. Meanwhile, Daniel stood at the dais, the officiant beginning the ceremony. Maya watched him closely, noting the subtle nervousness in his movements. She understood that the world outside this hall might see her differently. But here, for Daniel, she had a role that mattered. She had supported him and his family in ways that few knew. That support had been quiet, careful, and often dangerous. Today her presence was both a statement and a reminder. A sudden commotion near the entrance drew her attention. A group of late arrivals entered, human and alien, whispering among themselves as they took their seats. One of them, a human woman with short hair and bright green eyes, stared openly at Maya. She leaned toward her companion and said, "Is that Her, I thought she wouldn't come. Maya's eyes met the woman's for a brief moment. She did not smile, did not frown, she simply acknowledged the attention. The effect was immediate. The woman looked away, unsure of how to react. Others nearby noticed and shifted uncomfortably in their seats. That it was clear Maya's presence was no longer invisible. The whispers grew louder, curiosity turning into cautious admiration for some and subtle fear for others. Maya allowed it. She had learned that moments like these were not about confrontation, they were about observation, influence, and quiet power. As the ceremony progressed, a minor incident occurred that drew everyone's eyes. A decorative cloth began to slip from the dais, threatening to ruin the setup. Without hesitation, Maya moved forward, steadying it with a gentle touch. The crowd gasped, some whispering to each other, some outright staring. She returned to her seat as gracefully as before, showing no need for acknowledgement. It was then that a young boy sitting near the aisle whispered something to his mother. "Mom, who is she?" Amazing. Mother smiled, though softly. "I don't know, dear, but she's clearly special." Maya felt a small warmth at that comment. It was rare to see genuine appreciation amidst the whispers and judgment, but even this small recognition mattered, for it hinted at the change that was coming. Minutes passed, and the officiant called the wedding to begin. Guests were seated. The music shifted to a more ceremonial tune, and the attention of the room focused on Daniel. Maya's gaze remained on him, calm, steady, prepared. She knew that the moment of recognition, when her role and importance were finally revealed, that was approaching, and in the silence before the ceremony truly began, Maya allowed herself a private thought. Patience was not just a virtue, it was a weapon. Those who judged too quickly often missed the bigger picture, and today, the bigger picture involved her, Daniel, and the story that was about to unfold. She leaned back slightly in her chair, hands folded in her lap, her eyes scanning the room one last time before the ceremony fully began. The whispers continued, curiosity simmering beneath the polite facades of the guests. Maya didn't flinch, didn't react. She simply waited. The unseen guest had already made her presence felt, and soon the world would have to see her for who she truly was. The soft music shifted again, signaling the start of the main ceremony. Guests straightened in their seats, their eyes now occasionally flicking toward Maya. Some were curious, others cautious, and a few openly skeptical. Maya remained calm, her posture perfect, her gaze steady as she observed the unfolding scene. At the center of the hall, Daniel, the groom, adjusted his jacket and cleared his throat. He was smiling, but there was a nervous edge to his expression. He had prepared for this day for months. Yet the presence of someone so quietly powerful in the crowd always made him a little anxious. That someone was Maya. As the officiant began the formalities, Daniel's eyes briefly met hers. There was no need for words, just a look, and Maya understood. She nodded subtly, acknowledging him without breaking the composed demeanor that had drawn attention since her arrival. The ceremony progressed. Daniel's voice was steady but carried warmth and sincerity as he addressed the officiant and the audience. "We gather here today to celebrate love, trust, and unity," he began, the whole hanging on his every word. The soft hum of whispered translations from alien guests mixed with the melodic notes of the ceremonial music. Then came the moment that would change everything. As Daniel spoke of family, gratitude, and those who had supported him, he paused. A slight hesitation, almost imperceptible, filled the air. Then, in a voice clear and resonant, he said something that caused a ripple through the hall. "I want to thank Maya." The hall froze. Conversations halted mid. Eyes widened, heads turned. Even the officiant paused, blinking in surprise. Maya's name, spoken publicly by the groom, was like a key unlocking a door that had been firmly closed. The whispers that had surrounded her for hours fell silent. Some guests gasped audibly. "Maya." A woman whispered, her voice tinged with awe. "The same Maya," Daniel continued, his voice unwavering. "Maya has been a friend, a guide, and a protector. She has supported me and my family in ways that no one else could. Her courage and wisdom have helped us through challenges that could have destroyed us all. Today, I want her to know that her presence is not only welcomed, it is cherished." A murmur spread through the crowd. Guests shifted in their seats, some looking embarrassed forever judging her, others visibly impressed by the groom's public acknowledgement. Maya remained seated, composed, though her eyes softened with a quiet gratitude. She had never needed public recognition, but this moment carried more significance than anyone in the hall could imagine. Several of the more skeptical guests found themselves confronting their own assumptions. I never realized," whispered a pale-skinned diplomat to his companion. She helped him. Maya allowed herself a subtle smile. The room's perception was beginning to shift, slowly but undeniably. She had observed their whispers and doubts all evening, and now Daniel had altered the narrative with a single word, her name. The ceremony continued, but the energy in the hall had changed. Guests who had avoided her earlier now tried to meet her eyes, to offer polite nods or smiles. Maya acknowledged some, ignored others, but her calm presence dominated the room. She did not need to speak. Her significance was now publicly recognized. A young alien child, who had been whispering to her mother about Maya earlier, tugged at the fabric of her dress. "Mom, look, she's standing with them," the child whispered excitedly. The mother nodded, smiling, realizing that the quiet, unassuming guest had finally become the focus of attention. Daniel's eyes met Maya's again. This time he smiled openly, a mixture of relief and admiration. Maya returned the smile with warmth. Their shared understanding, built over years of trust and quiet support, did not require words. The crowd may have only now realized her importance, but Daniel had always known. Maya rose from her seat when Daniel gestured subtly. She stepped forward gracefully, moving toward the dais with poise. The whispers grew louder, though now tinged with curiosity and respect rather than suspicion. Some guests were hesitant, unsure how to approach her. Others watched in admiration, silently acknowledging the dignity and strength she carried effortlessly. As Maya reached the front, Daniel took her hand gently. "Thank you for being here," he said, his voice quiet but audible to those nearest. "For everything." Maya inclined her head slightly. "It is an honor to celebrate this day with you," she replied softly, her words carrying a calm authority that made even the loudest whispers pause. The Dient, regaining composure, cleared his throat. "Now that we have acknowledged the support of friends and loved ones, we may continue with the ceremony," he said, though his eyes remained fixed briefly on Maya. As if silently recognizing her quiet strength, guests began to relax, shifting in their seats as the tension eased. Many now looked at Maya with a mixture of awe and respect. The people who had earlier avoided her now felt compelled to approach or at least acknowledge her presence, even if only with a subtle nod. Maya allowed herself to notice the change, but she did not let it distract her. Her attention remained on Daniel and the ceremony. The recognition was satisfying, yes, but her role was not about validation. It was about being present, about supporting someone who mattered deeply to her. A few younger guests, inspired by her quiet dignity, leaned toward each other. "She's amazing," one whispered. "I've never seen anyone like her." Another nodded, eyes wide. She carries herself with such calm, and Daniel trusts her completely." That says everything." Maya overheard them but said nothing. Instead, she focused on the ceremony, her presence now commanding attention without any effort. The shift in perception was complete. She was no longer the unseen or avoided guest. She was acknowledged, respected, and quietly celebrated. As the ceremony drew to a close, Daniel turned to face the crowd fully. "Today is not just about love between two people," he said, glancing at Maya. "It is also about recognizing those who guide us, who support us when no one else can. Maya embodies those qualities, and I am proud to call her my friend." The applause that followed was warm, genuine, and directed toward Maya as much as toward the couple. The hall had changed. The same guests who had whispered and avoided her now looked at her with admiration and respect. Maya remained calm, her expression serene. She had anticipated this moment but never sought it. Recognition was a tool, not a necessity, and now, having observed the transformation in the room, she allowed herself a small, private smile. The ceremony ended on a high note, the music swelling and filling the hall with warmth. Guests began to mingle, many approaching Maya cautiously, seeking acknowledgement or understanding. She greeted them politely, her demeanor unchanged, her confidence unwavering. Daniel remained at her side, guiding her through the crowd. Together, they shared small smiles and gestures of appreciation, reinforcing the bond that had always existed between them. Maya's presence was no longer a source of discomfort for the guests. It was a reminder of courage, loyalty, and the quiet strength that often goes unnoticed until recognized. As the celebration continued, Maya realized something profound. The world often misjudges those it does not understand. But when someone trusted speaks their name, when someone acknowledges their worth, perceptions can change in an instant. Today had proven that truth beautifully, and so Maya stood quietly at the center of the hall, not claiming the spotlight, but allowing it to illuminate her anyway. For the first time that evening, she was fully seen. The room was no longer the same. The whispers that had followed Maya from the moment she arrived were replaced with curiosity, admiration, and even a hint of shame from those who had misjudged her. Guests who had avoided her now found themselves drawn to her, unsure how to approach someone whose quiet dignity had quietly demanded attention. Maya stood near the dais, calm and composed, observing the change. She didn't move to dominate the room. She didn't need to. Her presence alone was enough. People were drawn to her warmth, intelligence, and the subtle strength that radiated from every gesture she made. The first to approach her was the young alien diplomat who had earlier asked if she was related to the family. He hesitated slightly, then bowed respectfully. "Maya," he said, his voice low but sincere, I apologize for doubting your presence. I realize now that your guidance and support are truly valued." Maya inclined her head politely. "Thank you. Understanding comes with time. You are learning." Her words were soft but carried authority, a quiet reminder that respect was earned, not demanded. Next, a few human guests stepped forward. One of them, a woman in a lavender dress, nervously extended her hand. "I'm sorry," she said. I shouldn't have avoided you earlier. It's clear now how important you are to Daniel." and to all of us, in ways we cannot yet fully understand. Maya smiled gently, acknowledging what is true, even late, is always a step forward. She shook the woman's hand with grace, leaving no room for tension or awkwardness. Other guests began to approach, some with curiosity, some with admiration. Maya greeted each politely, her calm demeanor making them feel at ease despite their initial discomfort. The energy in the hall shifted completely where avoidance had once reigned. Respect now flourished. Even the aliens, who had been hesitant and unsure of how to interact with her, began to step forward. They asked her questions about her role in Daniel's life, the colony, and her experiences. Maya answered carefully, revealing just enough to pique curiosity while maintaining her dignity and discretion. A young alien child, the same one who had approached her earlier, tugged at her sleeve. "Tell me about the things you've done," the child whispered, eyes wide with excitement. Maya knelt slightly to meet the child's gaze. "Some things are for grown-ups," she said softly, "but courage, kindness, and patience, those are for everyone. You can carry those with you anywhere, even when others don't notice." The child beamed, and Maya rose gracefully. Around her, adults watched quietly, absorbing the wisdom in her words. The simplicity and clarity of her advice made an impression on everyone present. Daniel, watching from the dais, smiled. He had always known Maya's worth, but seeing the crowd finally recognize it as well filled him with a quiet pride. He gently guided her closer to him, speaking softly so only she could hear. "You've always carried yourself this way," he said, "and tonight everyone else is finally seeing it." Maya allowed herself a small smile. "They will learn more than they realize," she said. Perceptions change quickly when truth is shown. As the evening progressed, guests continued to approach her. Each interaction revealed more of her strength and intellect, though always tempered with humility. She was not seeking praise. She was simply herself, and that alone was enough to command respect. Even those who had been skeptical now sought her advice. A tall alien engineer, hesitant at first, approached with a question about a structural design in the hall. Maya examined the design quickly, offering a suggestion that subtly improved the plan. The engineer's eyes widened with admiration. I didn't expect that," he said. "You are remarkable." Maya nodded, her expression calm. Remarkable is a word for those who notice the effort behind the action, not just the action itself. The sentiment resonated with everyone nearby. Whispers of admiration replaced the earlier murmurs of doubt. Maya had become more than just a guest. She had become an example, a figure of poise, intelligence, and quiet strength that others couldn't ignore. Even the younger guests, who had initially been curious for innocent reasons, now observed her carefully. Her behavior, her words, and her demeanor became lessons in grace and courage. Some of them whispered to each other, inspired by her example. One human man, who had earlier scoffed at her presence, now approached cautiously. "Maya," he said, his tone apologetic, "I misjudged you. I see now, you are extraordinary." Maya regarded him calmly. "We all misjudge sometimes," she said. "What matters is that we correct it when we can." It was clear that she was not only accepted now but respected deeply. People sought her opinion, her insight, and even her company. Where avoidance had once reigned, admiration now thrived. As the night continued, a moment of quiet reflection came. Maya stepped to the balcony, overlooking the stars that stretched beyond the hall. The twinkling lights reminded her of the vastness of the universe and the small but significant part humans could play in it. She had always believed in humanity's capacity for courage, empathy, and intelligence. Tonight, she saw it reflected in the reactions of those around her. Daniel joined her at the balcony, gently taking her hand. "You've changed the atmosphere of this entire hall," he said softly. "Your presence, your calm, your strength. It makes everyone want to be better." Maya turned her gaze toward him, her eyes reflecting the soft starlight. "We all have the capacity," she said. "Sometimes we just need someone to remind us of it." The guests continued to celebrate inside, laughter and music filling the hall. Maya's influence could be felt even without her actively seeking attention. The simple act of her presence, combined with her grace and intelligence, had transformed the energy of the room. By the end of the evening, it was clear to all, Maya was not merely a guest. She was a figure of respect, an example of integrity and quiet power. Those who had avoided her now sought her guidance and friendship, eager to learn from someone whose life experience and wisdom far exceeded their initial assumptions. Even the who had been surprised when Daniel first mentioned her, now approached to offer a polite nod. "Maya," he said quietly, "it is an honor to have you here." Maya inclined her head. "Thank you," she replied softly, her voice calm yet firm. "It is an honor to celebrate life and unity with all of you." The night drew to a close, the music fading into a soft melody as guests began to depart. Maya remained quietly observing the transformed atmosphere. The once tense and judgmental crowd had become a community of respect, admiration, and curiosity, all because one person's presence, acknowledged by the right voice at the right moment, had shifted perceptions. Daniel joined her one last time before leaving. "Tonight, you showed them something important," he said. "Not just about you, but about how we see and respect each other." Maya smiled faintly. Perception is often the first barrier. Once it is broken, understanding can grow. Tonight, they've begun to see. As she watched the last of the guests leave, Maya felt a quiet satisfaction. She had not sought recognition, yet it had come. She had not demanded respect, yet it had been given. In a world quick to judge, she had reminded everyone that patience, grace, and quiet strength spoke louder than assumptions or fear, and in that moment, Maya realized something profound. Her presence alone could inspire, teach, and change minds. Recognition and respect were powerful, but even more powerful was the way humanity's courage and dignity could shine, even in a room filled with doubt and hesitation. Tonight, she had not only been signed, she had been acknowledged, and that acknowledgement had begun to ripple far beyond the walls of the wedding hall, leaving a lasting impression on everyone who had witnessed it. The hall had transformed completely. What began as a room filled with whispers, avoidance, and suspicion had become a space brimming with warmth, admiration, and curiosity. Guests moved through the room with a newfound sense of respect. Each glanced toward Maya, now filled with acknowledgement rather than judgment. Maya stood near the dais, her posture calm and dignified. The soft music continued to flow, blending with laughter and conversation as the wedding celebration reached its peak. Though she remained poised and composed, she could feel the subtle energy of the room shift around her. People were no longer cautious. They were genuinely drawn to her presence. A young alien woman approached her, glowing skin flickering faintly with nervous energy. "Maya," she said, voice soft but steady, "thank you for being here. For everything. I don't even know your full story, but it's clear you've had a remarkable impact." Maya inclined her head with a gentle smile. "Impact is not always visible," she said, "but small actions, taken with care and integrity, often ripple farther than we expect." The woman nodded, eyes shining with appreciation, before stepping away to share her admiration with other guests. Maya watched quietly, noting how each person she interacted with seemed to carry a little of her calm confidence with them. The ripple effect of patience, grace, and quiet strength was unfolding before her very eyes. Daniel, the groom, joined her at her side. "I've never seen them respond like this," he said quietly. "Not just the humans, even the aliens, they're different around you." Maya's eyes softened. "People often follow the example they're shown. Tonight, you spoke my name and reminded them of truth. That alone made the difference. Recognition can open minds, but guidance keeps them open." Daniel smiled, squeezing her hand lightly. "You've guided more than just me, Maya. Everyone here has felt it, even if they didn't understand it at first." As the evening continued, Maya moved gracefully through the hall, engaging with guests in quiet conversation. She spoke with young and old, humans and aliens alike, offering insights into challenges, small suggestions for improvement, and subtle wisdom that inspired thought rather than fear. Every interaction, no matter how brief, left an impression. One young human boy approached nervously, holding a small device. "Miss Maya," he said, "I want to be brave like you someday. Can you tell me how?" Maya knelt slightly to meet his gaze. "Bravery is not about doing everything perfectly," she said softly. "It's about choosing to act even when others doubt you, and about treating people with respect even when it's hard. You already have the courage. You just need to trust it." The boy's eyes widened, a spark of understanding lighting up his face. "Thank you," he whispered. "I'll try it." Around her, adults watched quietly, inspired by the simple yet profound guidance she offered. Even those who had been skeptical now found themselves reconsidering their assumptions, reflecting on the power of kindness, patience, and quiet strength. Maya's influence extended far beyond her words. It was in the way she carried herself, in the calm assurance that never demanded attention but always commanded it. As the night grew later, Daniel stepped forward to address the crowd once more. He spoke of love, unity, and gratitude, but his gaze frequently returned to Maya. "Tonight," he said, "we celebrate not just a union, but the people who make our lives richer and safer. Maya is one of those people whose courage and wisdom have guided me and so many others. Let us all remember the value of recognition, respect, and integrity." The applause was warm, heartfelt, and filled with admiration for Maya. She remained composed, allowing the acknowledgement to flow over her without pride or arrogance. It was enough to see that her presence had made a difference, that lives had been touched and minds had been opened. Later, as the celebration slowed and the music softened, Maya stepped to the balcony, overlooking the stars that stretched endlessly beyond the colony. The lights of distant planets shimmered like tiny beacons in the dark, reminding her of the vastness of the universe and the small but meaningful role humans could play in it. Daniel joined her, standing silently beside her for a moment. "You've done more than anyone could have imagined tonight," he said softly. "Not just for me, but for all of them. Your presence, it's changed something." Maya's gaze remained on the stars, calm and thoughtful. "Change often starts quietly," she said. "One action, one word, one recognition. It can ripple farther than anyone expects." Tonight, they began to see that is enough for now. Daniel looked at her, admiration and gratitude clear in his eyes. "You've reminded everyone of what's truly important. Courage, respect, compassion. These aren't just words. You live them, and they reflect on all of us." Maya turned her gaze toward him, offering a gentle smile. And you reminded them, Daniel, recognition is a gift, it opens hearts. Without it, my presence would have been overlooked, no matter my intentions. Back in the hall, the guests were slowly beginning to depart, each one carrying with them a renewed sense of respect and curiosity. Some lingered to speak with Maya one last time, to thank her, or simply to witness the quiet strength that had transformed the evening. Others whispered among themselves, inspired by the example she had set. Maya observed them all with calm satisfaction. She had not sought recognition or accolades, yet the acknowledgement and respect she had earned were genuine. It was proof that integrity, patience, and quiet courage could overcome prejudice, doubt, and misunderstanding. As the final guests left, Maya stood alone for a moment, taking in the transformed atmosphere. The once tense and judgmental hall had become a place of warmth, admiration, and connection. Her presence had sparked that change, and she allowed herself a private sense of quiet pride, not from ego, but from knowing that she had influenced lives positively. Daniel joined her one last time before leaving the hall. Tonight, you showed them something important, he said softly. Not just about you, but about how we see and respect each other. Maya smiled faintly, looking at the stars above. Perception is often the first barrier, she said. Once it is broken, understanding can grow. Tonight, they've begun to see, and when people begin to see, the ripple spreads further than we realize. Daniel nodded, his expression thoughtful. I hope they carry that lesson forward. They will, Maya said confidently. Humans, and even those from other worlds, have a way of remembering the moments that touch them deeply. Tonight was one of those moments. As they stepped out of the hall, the cool night air brushing against their faces, Maya felt a quiet sense of fulfillment. Her presence had not only been recognized, it had inspired. The crowd had shifted from suspicion and avoidance to admiration and respect, and she knew that the impact of this evening would reach far beyond the wedding itself. The stars stretched endlessly above them, silent witnesses to the power of recognition, courage, and quiet strength. Maya knew that her role in this colony and in the lives of those who had witnessed her was far from over. She had sparked change, planted seeds of understanding, and reminded everyone that true courage and dignity could not be hidden. And in that quiet, starlit moment, Maya understood something profound. Sometimes, being seen and acknowledged is enough to transform not only perceptions but the future itself. The wedding celebration had ended, but Maya's legacy had just begun.